Game winner from the GOAT. Haters gonna hate. Y'all gonna be mad at this one. Caitlin Clark, game winner. Is nothing you can do. Even Stephanie White trying to freeze out and ice the GOAT and bench her. It don't matter. You can't stop greatness, Stephanie White. The Indiana Fever organization can't stop a GOAT. It does not matter. Game.
Basketball games are supposed to end when the final buzzer sounds. Apparently, nobody told the Indiana Fever. After the loss was over, the real showdown began at the podium, where Stephanie White attempted to explain the night. And Caitlin Clark responded in a manner that had fans doing detective work at Olympic speed. What looked like an ordinary press conference suddenly turned into the WNBA version of a family group chat argument that accidentally got projected onto a stadium scoreboard.
Clark and Sophie Cunningham. The question we had this morning, did these two ladies go rogue on that final play? Was this play actually drawn up for Kelsey Mitchell and Sophie Cunningham said, I think I'll make a different decision with the basketball? Was this play drawn up to get Kelsey Mitchell the game-winning shot so Stephanie White can run across the court, chase her down?
Some basketball stories unfold on the court. Others reveal themselves in the uncomfortable moments that follow when the final buzzer has already sounded and everyone involved is trying to explain what just happened.
Stephanie White and Caitlin Clark, they hugged on camera. It was like a forced hug. If you go back and really look at it, if you slow it down and look at it, one person was more into it than the other, and it just wasn't, I wasn't sold on it. You know, I really kind of rolled my eyes and I went on. You know, I didn't really dwell on it. I knew what it was. It's considering how much they played. I mean,
The Indiana Fever's loss to the New York Liberty felt less like a single game and more like the latest chapter in a season-long debate that refuses to disappear. What made this particular night different was not the final score. It was the
moment covering the Indiana Fever. I ain't lying, y'all. I mean, for the last 2.5, almost 3 years covering this damn team, man, it has been very exciting. Good moments, a lot of bad moments, whole lot of bad moments. But one person that is making the most of all of these damn moments is Christy Sides. Oh my God, Christy Sides is subliminally firing shots again. It's almost like it's intense.
It was the growing sense that frustrations that had been simmering beneath the surface were becoming impossible to ignore. For months, fans, analysts, and observers had watched a team searching for consistency while carrying the enormous expectations that arrived with Caitlin Clark's entrance into professional basketball.
Oh man, shout out to Caitlin Clark. Hey, CC, you better have hit that shot last night. You better have hit that shot. All them Caitlin Clark haters would have been out full force going crazy. Look, she's not clutch. She missed the free throws. She's not a good leader. She's the reason why they lost. All of that. They would have called you every name they've called you and some you haven't heard.
Every substitution, every rotation, every post-game explanation, and every visible reaction on the sidelines seemed to generate another round of discussion. By the time the Fever walked off the floor against New York, that discussion had reached a new level. The irony is that the game itself began with reasons for optimism. Indiana showed energy early, moving the ball with purpose and creating the kind of offensive rhythm that has often looked like the blueprint for their success. When Clark was orchestrating possessions, the offense appeared connected. Teammates were finding opportunities. The pace was into tougher decisions. As the game progressed, the flow that had looked so promising became increasingly difficult to sustain. That shift immediately reignited a conversation that has followed the Fever throughout the season. Critics of the coaching staff have repeatedly argued that Clark's rotations sometimes arrive at moments that disrupt offensive momentum rather than preserve it. Supporters of the coaching decisions counter that managing minutes over the course of a long season requires discipline, even when a player appears to be in rhythm. Regardless of which side people favor, one reality has become impossible to deny. Every substitution involving Clark now carries a level of scrutiny that few players in professional sports experience.
What went down between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White? And people say, you're trying to hate and pin Caitlin Clark against Stephanie White. The only thing I would ask is if my best player, every single game, there's a ghost foul. like where she doesn't touch anybody, whether you challenge, whether you erupt and get mad at official and get a technical foul, I would hope that you would stand up for them, because the way it looks is the WNBA.
Against New York, those questions returned almost instantly. Music. As Indiana searched for answers offensively, the Liberty continued tightening their grip on the game. Possessions became more difficult. Opportunities became less frequent. The margin for error disappeared. At the same time, another dynamic emerged that has generated debate among Fever fans throughout the year. Kelsey Mitchell, one of the most talented scorers on the roster, found herself at the center of conversations about offensive balance. Mitchell's ability to create her own shot is a genuine asset, and there are many nights when that aggressiveness becomes a major reason Indiana remains competitive. However, there are also games when the line of the ball movement that allows the offense to operate at its highest level. As New York gradually pulled away, those concerns became louder. What followed after the game may ultimately be remembered more than anything that happened during it. When Stephanie White addressed the media, she spoke in the language that coaches frequently use after difficult losses. Her comments focused on collective responsibility, offensive execution, and the need for better decision-making. On the surface, there was nothing unusual about that approach.
They tried to sabotage again, and it did not work.
Let's get it going. Let's get it going. Did y'all like that? Did y'all like that game winner? What Future say? This from the bottom really like that. Pop another bottle if you like that. He know that they're gonna run away. They can't stop her. You can't stop her.
Coaches rarely single out players publicly, especially after emotional defeats. However, professional sports audiences have become remarkably skilled at reading between the lines. White's references to impatience, ball movement, and offensive rhythm immediately sparked debate because many observers believe the description did not match what they had just watched unfold. To those critics, the comments seemed to point in one direction, while the game itself pointed somewhere else. That disagreement became the fuel for everything that happened next. What made the reaction so powerful was not that Caitlin Clark launched into a public attack. She did not. There was no dramatic outburst, no pressure. She rarely says more than necessary, yet she often says enough to ensure her point is understood. It is a skill that becomes increasingly valuable when every word is analyzed by fans, reporters, former players, and entire television networks. At its core, the debate is not really about one substitution, one press conference, or even one disappointing fourth quarter. It is about expectations. When a franchise acquires a player capable of transforming ticket sales, television ratings, sponsorship opportunities, and national attention, every decision surrounding that player becomes magnified. The Fever are experiencing that reality in real time.
Well, it seems the 4 seconds of beautiful basketball that we saw yesterday was not something that we can even give Stephanie White credit for. And I was just about to give her flowers because I was kind of excited. That last play that Caitlin Clark gets open on, she bombs that logo bomb. That Stephanie White did not write up this play for Caitlin Clark at all. This play was written up for both Kelsey Mitchell and Aaliyah Boston. Caitlin Clark was almost like a third option, but more than anything, she was a decoy in this play. Off rip, you got Aaliyah Boston setting the screen for Kelsey Mitchell.
Every win becomes evidence that the process is working. Every loss becomes evidence that something is broken. Every coaching decision becomes a referendum on leadership. Every visible expression from Clark becomes a headline. Fair or unfair, that is the environment Indiana now operates within. And as the season has progressed, the pressure created by that environment has continued to grow. What happened after the Liberty game felt significant because many people interpreted it as a sign that the conversations taking place outside the organization were beginning to mirror frustrations developing inside it. Whether those interpretations are accurate is ultimately known only by the people in the locker room. The reason the conversation refuses to disappear bring it back into focus. The Liberty game simply happened to provide another piece of evidence for people who believe the Fever have not yet found the right balance. Supporters of the current approach argue that development takes time. They point out that integrating a high-profile rookie into a professional system is rarely seamless. Chemistry must be built. Habits must be formed. Roles must evolve. Basketball history is filled with examples of talented teams that needed patience before reaching their potential. Critics,
At the end of the game, on Indianapolis radio, she spilled the beans. She said, that play didn't go exactly as planned. Wait, what do you mean? Caitlin Clark had a wide open three. Wait, getting her wide open to win the game wasn't exactly as planned? Stephanie White's reaction after Caitlin Clark hit the game-winning shot. The reaction of a coach said, that didn't really go exactly as planned.
Critics, however, see something different. They see a team repeatedly moving away from the very things that make its most dynamic playmaker special. They see stretches where Clark's ability to control tempo, manipulate defenses, and create opportunities for teammates becomes less central than it should be. More importantly, they see a pattern rather than an isolated incident. That is why the reaction after the Liberty loss felt so intense. People were not responding to one game. They were responding to months of accumulated frustration. Every season develops recurring themes, and one of the recurring themes surrounding Indiana has been the contrast between Clark's natural style and the offensive identity the team sometimes displays. At her best, when it is not, possessions become slower, more predictable, and easier to defend. Against New York, many observers felt they witnessed both versions of Indiana within the same game. Early stretches showcased the potential. Later stretches highlighted the concerns. The contrast made the outcome feel less like a random off night and more like a snapshot of the larger challenges facing the franchise. The post-game discussion only amplified those feelings. One detail that continued to surface was the number of missed opportunities around the basket.
You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do Chrissy size a big one. I'm gonna make her a video, and definitely is, because what we've been seeing out of Stephanie White is completely unacceptable. What we've been seeing take place with the management of Caitlin Clark, with the offense that is being run. I said this yesterday on stream. I'm gonna say it again in this video. We're seeing the 2024 Connecticut Sun right before our eyes. They might as well change their name to the Fever Sun. This is the Fever Sun team, because that is what we're seeing, man. Stephanie White is completely running the exact same thing.
Stephanie White herself referenced the team's struggles converting high-percentage chances, including a significant number of missed layups. Those missed shots mattered because they represented tangible possessions left on the floor. They were not complicated strategic debates. They were opportunities that simply did not turn into points. In many ways, that statistic became symbolic of the entire evening. Basketball conversations often become consumed by narratives about leadership, coaching, and accountability. But sometimes games are decided by simpler realities. Teams miss open shots. Players fail to convert opportunities. Momentum shifts because one side executes while the other side does not. Yet, even while acknowledging those realities, the debate surrounding the Fever continued to return to a familiar topic. Why did so many people feel that responsibility was being distributed unevenly? Half they saw mistakes being discussed in broad collective language, while specific decisions that contributed to those mistakes remained unnamed. They saw a conversation about offensive stagnation that, in their view, avoided addressing some of the players most directly involved in it. They saw explanations that felt incomplete.
With Caitlin Clark coaching on the sidelines alongside Stephanie White last season, you didn't see it very much. All right, so you didn't see it in preseason of this season. I didn't see it over at the USA qualifiers in Puerto Rico because Stephanie White was there too. All right, and why all of a sudden there's a hug in this game? In this particular game, when there's really, the dream didn't show up.
Again, those interpretations are subjective, but perception often drives sports narratives as much as reality. Once enough people begin seeing the same pattern, the story develops a momentum of its own. That momentum became impossible to ignore after Clark's response. What made her reaction resonate was its restraint. Modern sports culture often expects dramatic confrontations. Fans have become accustomed to viral clips, heated exchanges, and emotional outbursts. Instead, Clark appeared to communicate her perspective in a manner that remained measured, while still leaving little doubt that she disagreed with parts of the narrative forming around the loss. For many viewers, that approach carried more weight than anger ever could. There is something powerful about a player who does not need to raise her voice to make her point. There is something even more powerful when that player has spent months avoiding public controversy, despite operating under an enormous spotlight. The divide was sharp, but the attention itself revealed something important. The Fever are no longer a team that can quietly work through issues behind closed doors. Every disagreement becomes public conversation. Every internal challenge becomes national content. Every decision is analyzed from dozens of different angles.
Fever watch, nasty win, but it's a win nonetheless for the Indiana Fever. I'm glad to see Clark somewhat looking better. First quarter dropped 10 points, shooting long threes, looking like she's had enough of the BS and she's just going to play a game. That's what I seen last night. I didn't see her trying to be a part of the system. I seen her trying to play her game. And that's all I really want to see is her try to play a game because it looks different out there when she's doing it. Turnovers come with it.
That is both the gift and the burden of having a superstar capable of transforming a league's visibility. With greater attention comes greater scrutiny. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of this entire situation is that nobody involved appears to be questioning the talent on the roster. The discussions are not centered on whether Clark is talented enough. They are not centered on whether Mitchell can score. They are not centered on whether White understands basketball. The debate exists because people believe the pieces should fit together better than they currently do. That belief is what keeps the conversation alive. Fans look at the roster and see potential. They look at the individual talent and imagine what could happen if everything aligned perfectly. Then they watch games where that alignment never fully arrives, and frustration begins to grow. In that sense, the Liberty game felt less like a breaking point and more like a mirror. It reflected concerns that had been building for months. It reflected questions about rotations, offensive philosophy, and accountability. It reflected the enormous expectations attached to a franchise attempting to navigate one of the most transformative periods in its history. Most importantly, it reflected the reality that patience has limits. Organizations often assume talented players will simply continue waiting for circumstances to improve. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do not. History is filled with examples of stars who remained loyal through difficult periods, just as it is filled with examples of stars who eventually decided they needed a different environment. No one is suggesting